Hey kids, Mr. Walls, we're here. Just got done with a workout and now I'm ready to do some AP Gov. Sort of getting ready for the test. I tried to send out a Microsoft Teams thing, but it's not sending right. It's a weird. So I'll send out a Zoom thing. So if there's any, for those of you taking the test, maybe we could just chat for a minute on Friday, just to make sure you're all, where you want to be. And we are kind of at May, and we have covered a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to start going through some of the things that are pretty hardcore for the test. Now, remember, this year it's open note tests. They don't have a whole lot of choice there because you have to take it at home, and it would be pretty freaking hard to set up a camera on you. So, keep an eye on that. The emails from College Board, they will keep sending you emails that kind of give you instructions on, what's going to happen with the test, how it's going to work. That's going to be really important. And it's on you. They're not going to send me a link and then I can send it on. No, they're going to come directly through you. So keep an eye on that. If you are taking the test, if you're not taking the test, you're pretty much done with your senior year. You guys have probably been tuned out for ages. But keep an eye on that stuff. It's very important that if you have not been getting stuff from them, contact College Board, AP Central. Contact them and talk to them and speak to someone on the phone and say, hey, why am I not getting updates? I registered for tests. Anyway, all right. Let's take a look at some of the basic stuff that we're going to be dealing with today. I would like to kind of get into the organization of Congress, just so that, because I think that this is, this is one of those things that you have to absolutely have. You have a House of Representatives and you have a Senate. The House of Representatives is 435 members, and it's based on population. And by the way, make sure you have all of this stuff in your notes. Okay? The Senate is not based on population. It is 2 senators, okay, from each state. The Senate, for the record, is the more conservative, not Republican, but more conservative type of person. Senators have 6-year terms, so they get a while to get. They're usually more moderate. House of Representatives, because the representative, they represent much smaller areas, you tend to get more radical type individuals. And so remember that this is the compromise between the New Jersey and the Virginia plan. The Virginia plan was they wanted it to be population based. The New Jersey plan was they wanted it to be 2 people from each state, and then the Connecticut Compromise comes in, and the Connecticut Compromise states that you will have a House of Representatives where it's population based and a Senate that is 2 people from each state. Okay. 2-year term in the House because it's more radical, tends to attract more radical people. 6 years in the Senate in that it's a much larger jurisdiction that you're dealing with. 25 years old to be in the House, 30 years to be in the Senate, and, you know, a bunch of that. That's, you have to live in the state. I remember that when Hillary Clinton went up to New York to become a senator from New York, they accused her of being a carpetbagger. Well, carpetbagger is a term that comes out of the Reconstruction period of the United States. The South, Southerners were not allowed to hold political positions. So you had Northerners that were carpetbaggers, meaning they wrapped up all their belongings in a carpet bag, I don't even know, and moved south to govern. That's where the term comes from. Of course, in the Reconstruction period, you also had, it was also scalawags. That was a Southerner who was a northern ass kisser, I guess would be the term. I don't know, you know. So there were carpetbaggers and scalawags. That goes back to the Civil War. That's actually, you know, these types of things are things you can throw into an exam. January 3rd is when your term starts in the legislative branch. Let's see, they meet, the president can call a special session of either or both. And important to remember, the Senate has a majority leader who is of the majority party, majority leader. So, and then there is a minority leader. Okay, this has nothing to do with race. And this goes for the House as well. In the House, Nancy Pelosi is the Senate, the House Majority Leader, and Mitch McConnell is the Senate Majority Leader. Right now, the Senate of the United States is a Republican-run, dominated institution, and the House is a Democrat-dominated institution. So the majority leader of the House will be a Democrat. The majority leader of the Senate will be a Republican. If you go back to Obama, he had a Democratic House Speaker and a Democratic Senate Majority Leader. That's how he was able to get the Affordable Care Act passed. Apportionment. Distribution among the states based on population of each of the states. That's the term apportionment. Reapportionment, the redistribution of congressional seats after a census. That's key. We just had a census. So the apportionment is the amount of representatives you're going to get. When we take a census, we reapportion, okay? Congressional districting. This is where, and the technical term is the drawing by state legislatures of congressional districts for those states. Okay, this is where the idea of gerrymandering comes from. It was turn of the century. I know the guy's name was Jerry. I don't know. But gerrymandering deals with congressional districting. Gerrymandering is an important term. Gerrymandering is where you manipulate the districts, and you look at if you look at a map of a gerrymandered map, have a drawing of that. All of these definitions should be in your notes for this. When you take a look at a gerrymandering map, you'll see it looks like a squiggle, you know, because you're trying, the political party in power is often trying to create, through the gerrymandering process, a district voting map that keeps him or her in power. So let's say a good example of this is, let's say, because you have a number of districts in your state. So let's say you have 10 districts. And let's say your state is 60% African-American and 40% non-African-American. Let's say that you are wanting to keep your power, you are a hardcore Republican in a state that is 60% African-American. What you would try to do is you would try and create a district where the majority of African-Americans were in 1 or 2 or 3 out of 10 districts, so that 7 districts, they are non-African-American, and 3 districts, much larger districts, are African-American. Now, the way you would say to yourself, well, how the hell? Well, this was a big part of Reconstruction politics and racial politics. You know, it's still an issue today. But see, what happens is, if you have a state like New Jersey, where the majority of the African-American community is in Camden, Plainfield, Newark, the inner city areas, you create 3 districts. Even though those districts have a much higher population density, their weight is the same, and you have most. You know, that's how you manipulate the voting system through the process of gerrymandering. Okay, let's see, what else do I want to touch on? Okay, the incumbency effect. This is a classic part of politics. Incumbency means you're the person in power. So Donald Trump is in power. He is the incumbent. So he is going to try to keep his position. Now, it's a 2-term position. So if he were to get elected, and I just bring this up, I don't know what's going to happen, he would be what's considered a lame duck president. So your first term, you have a second term that you could win. Once you're a second term, since you're only allowed 2 terms, you're called a lame duck, meaning you can go crazy and, you know, sign whatever you want to sign because you can't get reelected. Now, most presidents don't go off the rails here, but it does, you know, it does happen. So anyway, the incumbency effect is the probability that you will get reelected because you're an incumbent. And that falls in line with name recognition and credit claiming, 2 other major factors. You know who Donald Trump is, okay? And he is going to take credit for a lot of different things. I'm not politically one party or another, as you well know. I'm a libertarian, damn it. But I don't think, and he's done a terrible job with the coronavirus, any worse than anybody else would have. The lockdown is the most insane thing I have ever seen in my philosophical career, kids. Not to rant, but I am Team Sweden. I'm old and have exercise-induced asthma. I cannot believe we locked down this country. I will say it 1,000,000 times. It is I think, the dumbest thing that's ever been done by anybody in any country. Team Sweden. I am on Team Sweden. Now, with that said, I don't fault anybody for it. I just don't think I think it's a tough situation. I don't think Donald Trump's done a horrible job. What the hell else was he supposed to do? I mean, The country is doing what it's doing. Man, people are dying. They're getting sick. That's happened everywhere. I mean, were we ready for it? No. You know, that's my one area. My one criticism is the fact that he had, you know, I think he had dramatically, or he had cut one of the programs that would have had us a little better prepared. But, you know, to be honest with you, I don't think anybody could see this coming. Anyway, sorry to rant. So if you are an incumbent, fundraising is easy. Donald Trump has done exceptionally well with fundraising. You have media exposure whenever you want it, and that's another really important part. You have tons of experience in terms of, you know, you can talk about that experience. So name recognition, being able to take credit for achievements. You've handled stuff from your constituency that people may deem you did a great job with. You have tons of media exposure, and you have experience with the whole process of getting elected. And the big thing is the fundraising. You're an incumbent. Fundraising is easy. Not easy, but it's easier. Now, we have term limits on the presidency, but there is no legislation for term limits in terms of the House of Representatives or the Senate. Some people have pushed for term limits. I believe Rand Paul has pushed for term limits, although he's been in there forever. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was his dad. I love his dad. Not a big fan of Rand. His dad is like my kind of libertarian. Anyway, speaking of that, Speaker of the House is the guy who or woman who presides over the House of Representatives, and the Speaker is elected by their party. Okay. Now remember, there's a majority leader and a speaker. I probably didn't make that clear. So you have a speaker who's elected, and then a majority leader. And I don't know, he's like an assistant, or she's an assistant to the speaker, and does most of the like grunt work. And then the real grunt work goes to what are called whips. Okay, WHIPS. They are the ones that run around collecting information for the majority leader or minority leader. Okay. The Senate, let's see, the vice president is not a member of the Senate, but he is the presiding officer of the Senate. Let's see, you have majority and minority floor leaders. Let's see. Oh, President pro tempore in the Senate is a member of the majority party chosen to preside in the absence of the Senate president. It's pretty much a ceremonial position. Now, the Senate runs and the House run based on committees. And, you know, the chairs of committees, it's usually a seniority thing. And everybody serves on some kind of a committee. Now, I'm going to give you the types of committees. Remember, I'm always assuming that you're out walking your dog and this is just in your ear, like refreshing. You have a standing committee. That is a permanent committee that deals with specific policy matters. So you would have a Veterans Affairs Standing Committee, Natural Resources Standing Committee, Environment Standing Committee. A Select Committee is a temporary committee that has a specific purpose. I'm sure there's a bunch of coronavirus committees going right now in both the House and the Senate. A joint committee is both the House and the Senate together. And a conference committee is a temporary committee from both houses that is there. So if you have you got to resolve differences. Okay, so a conference committee gets together and says, well, what will it take for this to work? Okay, those are your committees. Every bill that is presented typically goes to committee. Now, I'm at like my 20-minute mark, and I know how long you like to walk your dogs. Let's try it. I'm going to try, look for a Zoom invite for Friday, and it would be at 10 o'clock. Okay, boys, you take care of yourselves. Love you.